Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tamron Hall, live in New York.
And I'm Donnie Deutsch, sitting in for David Schuster.
And in the big picture, just 2 hours to go until President Obama, Harvard Professor Gates, and Cambridge Sergeant Crowley come together and enjoy a beer outside the White House. And Press Secretary Robert Gibbs says it will be, obviously, an informal event since beer is being served for the men to talk about what escalated into a national debate over race. The three men will meet at a round table in the Rose Garden, also traveling to D.C. Gates and Crowley's attorneys, as well as family members. And just moments ago, we got this tape of Crowley speaking at the airport after arriving in Washington.
In the bigger picture, what will tonight's White House meeting do for the race relations in America? President Obama calls it a teachable moment. He believes the meeting will help spark a discussion on race, but will it work? In an interview with ABC News, Attorney General Eric Holder says race is an issue that's divided us in the past and could divide us in the future.
I think, we're certainly in a much better place than we were. I think work remains. But there also is work that needs to be done in communities of color, where I think people too often want to assume that the police or people in law enforcement are doing the wrong thing.
James Peterson is professor of Africana Studies at Bucknell University, and he joins us live from Washington. I guess the kind of disturbing thing that with these events is that we all felt maybe naively with electing an African-American president that we took a much bigger step forward than in reality on a day-to-day basis does play out in this country as far as race relations.
Yeah, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves on that. I mean, I'm personally more interested in companies like Blue Shield and Blue Cross than I am in Blue Moon Beer. But I really would like to see whether or not all the different people that are involved in this process, including the president, are willing to make these beer summit happens in communities across the country. I mean, let's have officers of the law and community leaders and community folk sit down together and try to talk through some of the issues to try to heal the rifts between policing institutions and the communities that they have to protect and serve. I mean, that's what I'd like to see come out of this. It would be interesting to see if that's the case.
And Professor, we are waiting to get some sound of the president. He spoke about this beer meeting, beer summit as it's been called. He's with the president of the Philippines, and we're going to play that here shortly. But real quick, Professor Peterson, let me ask you, does this at all have the potential to minimize a very serious and difficult conversation? Obviously, these two men have very different perspectives of what happened. One referred to the other as a rogue cop. The other said the other was belligerent, basically, and acting out of control. Somebody's got to relent. It would seem, to find an equal ground here. Maybe not over race, but over behavior.
Sure, yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think what we need to take from this is like the conversation that you, Tamron, and Donnie were having about the interaction you had earlier. Those kinds of conversations are happening all over the country, and we really need to sort of make those things happen in this moment. This is a largely symbolic gesture. This beer summit is largely symbolic, but we have to take the symbol and make something real happen in our communities.
Let's do a little one of these discussions right now between you and I. We've never met. You're an African-American man, white man. Give me an incident that's happened in your life that, as liberal as I am, I can't understand because I've never walked in your shoes.
Well, Donnie, there's too many to recount here, but I'll give you an incident with myself in graduate school. When I was preparing for my exams in graduate school, I had a small cubicle out of which I worked, and I went in that day to study and to prepare for my exam, and someone had scrawled the N-word on my desk. And they had engraved it in the desk really harsh. And up to that moment, I hadn't really thought very racially about being in graduate school. But that threw me so far off my game. It affected my performance in the exam, and it actually affected me in general over the next year or so because I was just stunned that someone would approach me that way.